Governor Cuomo from New York. Come to find out, he doesn't like marijuana very much. So he opposes marijuana legalization, and he even had the audacity to whip out with the gateway theory. It's a High Times article by Chris Roberts. A Machiavellian viper and a would be savior of the Democratic Party. Andrew Cuomo also knows more about marijuana than you, especially if you're a scientist, addiction researcher, or anyone involved in public health. Um, you know, we got. I don't. If you don't know nothing about Andrew Cuomo, you just need to go to his Twitter feed and look down the list. He is definitely an advocate for a lot of awesome policies that are, shall we say, more friendly to the people than to the big corporations. But when you're the governor of New York, you have that option because, the big corporations and all that, they already got all they want there and more. They get whatever they want. They do whatever they want. They run Wall Street. So in the meanwhile, your governor is back there. He's trying to fight for higher minimum wage. He's trying to fight for better health care. He's trying to fight for free college. Was one of the things I noticed. So he's definitely a steward for good policies for the people, and the Democrats should like that. Modern day Democrats don't seem like they really care too much about that. They're more of the economic Democrats, the neoliberals, as the name is for those kind. And I accuse him of being that because even though he's got all these policies that sound like they're friendly to the people, there's ways that they benefit other than the people, and he's not always for these things. And when it comes to marijuana, he's not for legalizing marijuana. So he ought to know something. When he was sworn in as New York governor in 2011, Cuomo inherited a veritable police state whose public enemy number one was weed. Led by then Commissioner Bill Bratton's Stop and Frisk NYPD, police in New York State arrested more people for low-level marijuana crime per capita than any other state in the country. An arrest rate for weed doubled the national average, according to the American Civil Liberties Union. Under the New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, himself a former and possibly current marijuana user, the carnage has mercifully eased off. But police still bust black and brown young men for marijuana possession far more than whites. The easy and obvious solution to this pointless exercise would be to legalize marijuana. New Yorkers have been calling for this for a long time. The majority of Americans, like the ones Andrew Cuomo would likely try to woo in primaries in 3 years. Yeah, right. Cuomo's not going to run for president. But anyway, if he was, everybody wants marijuana to be legal. So you should have took a stance pro-legalizing for a while ago, man. But anyway, he didn't. And Cuomo will need to win states like California, Florida, New York, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin. All these places have a high number of marijuana approval in polls. Like, we're talking close to 60%, man. You're not going to win any election. You're going to run for Senate next or something? I don't know what you're trying to run for. And when they say 4 years, that's not, or 3 years, that sounds like president. You think you're going to run for president and you're against legalizing recreational marijuana in 2016 and 2017, and you've been running the shadiest medical marijuana program in the United States of America? People are they're gonna pull that up. That's going to be a deciding factor for a lot of voters. It really is. I hate to be a stickler. I've said it before. If if I'm going to look at what your voting record is and what your positions are, I'm going to start there. All right. And then if there's something that can pull me away from that, good or bad, then I'll go from there. But we're going to start with, what do you feel about marijuana legalization? Do you still want to lock up kids for marijuana? You still want to have prisons full of nonviolent drug offenders because of marijuana? Anyway, we'll go back to the slides. This is the idea currently pushed by the state house by State Senator Liza Kruger, a Manhattan Democrat. And that was legalizing adult use of recreational marijuana in New York State. It's another one of those states that has legislation on the floor. Like, you can go from coast to coast and beyond. Hawaii has legislation on the floor. New Jersey. 5 5 states, 6 states on the East Coast total. So, and Texas of all places. So for someone with national political ambitions like Cuomo, adding legalization, a proven winner with broad support including independents and Democratic Party's left wing, who Cuomo would presumably want on his side, is a no-brainer. Or maybe it ain't a no-brainer. Maybe Cuomo doesn't have a brain. I don't really know, man. But this week Cuomo broke with most researchers and pushed the tired old lie that marijuana is a gateway drug. And then suggested a Politico reporter was on pot for even asking about his views on recreational weed. I thought it was bad enough that he come out for this gateway stuff because we've all heard it. We've all had to deal with it. People that are fighting for legalization. It's one of the most annoying pieces of propaganda out there because it's really hard to unless you sit there and explain it to somebody. On the surface, it sounds good to people that don't know a whole lot about marijuana and other drugs, just that, like, they have an experience knowing that heroin and opiates and shit like that kill people. And they've seen people they know maybe, affected by those drugs. But when it comes to this gateway theory, it's out there. And the more it permeates, the worse it is for people trying to overcome this bad reputation that people that use marijuana have. Marijuana itself, it just tarnishes the reputation of something for no reason, making it sound like, oh my goodness, if you do marijuana, you're definitely going to end up doing something harder. And the hardest thing you could probably do is alcohol. So that's the one people are usually drink at the Christmas party when they're 5 years old or something. And then, and it's a right-wing talking point. This gateway theory is something that the right-wingers have been beating like a dead dog for 80 years. I mean, it really didn't get its accelerated push. It was basically the only thing you needed as ammo back in the 1960s and early 70s. That's when it was in textbooks and psychology books and books about drugs. Marijuana is the gateway drug. It's just like the next sentence. And, of course, people that use marijuana are going to go ahead and go moving on down to something harder. And this goes all the way back to the reefer madness back in the 1930s. Because back then they had no choice but to, pull out all the stops. 10 years before that, marijuana wasn't even thought about. Everybody had a bottle of it in their, medicine cabinet. Cannabis. No one thought of anything of it. But then when they made it illegal, they had to demonize it. And to demonize it, you have to pull out stuff like, first you do marijuana, then you do hash, then you do heroin. And they had these cartoons that were in the back of comic books. They had actual movies and stuff. And this stuff was the film noir of the day. That was what the hipsters wanted to go see. Like, oh, did you see the newest Reefer Madness movie? I mean, that's how it was. And it still is with guys like Cuomo, a Democrat pushing the same old garbage that Republicans have been laughing at us as they use for decades. And in the 2016 election, we all seen those commercials saying that it was the gateway. At the same time as the FDA, the FBI, the CIA, the DEA, I'm getting lost in my alphabet soup, but just about everybody, including the National Institute on Health and the National Institute on Drug Abuse, had all came out and made some kind of a public statement or a tweet or something to the effect of, we don't really think the gateway theory is a thing, okay? But somehow the Democratic governor of New York, who's supposed to be this flaming liberal, for some reason, he's still shoving this gateway theory shit down our throats. And what's worse, he pot shames the reporter. So, we got Jimmy Valkind. He's the Politico reporter, and this is the full exchange. So Jimmy's like, you've talked a lot about making New York progressive leader, and in your state written message, you talked about restructuring marijuana laws. You haven't embraced recreational marijuana, even as other states have. And I'm wondering, why are you kind of a stick in the mud about recreational marijuana? His answer, why am I a stick in the mud about recreational marijuana? That's sort of a loaded question, wouldn't you say, Jimmy? It has an opinion in it. I support medical marijuana. I don't support recreational marijuana. Apparently you do, which explains some of the stories you've been writing. Recreational marijuana, I think, should be separated from the workplace. Do we agree on that? Absolutely, sir. I just wanted to make sure. But you've smoked marijuana. You said you've done so. Why not recreational marijuana? Lots of New Yorkers smoke marijuana unlawfully. Answer. The flip side argument, as you know, is it's a gateway drug. And marijuana leads to other drugs, and there's a lot of proof that's true. There's two sides to the argument, but I, as of date, am unconvinced on recreational marijuana. If you choose to marijuana recreationally, you know the law. But again, as reporters, I think you should keep it out of the workplace. But if you do but it does explain a lot to me, Jimmy. I want you to know that. Now, let's just rewind this. What the hell? What is this? What is going on here? We have a reporter, presumably they're on a first name basis, but presumably Cuomo don't like his opinions when it comes to marijuana and really gets down on him about apparently just being a dumb stoner writing stupid stories or something. I'm not sure, but I'm really appalled by this whole thing. So Cuomo says that he supports medical marijuana. We know it's not true. If he supported medical marijuana, his state wouldn't suck. All right, you'd hear about how it had a great medical marijuana program. It was the model for the country, but you don't because you don't want it to be that. If you had anything like that, it might be California, but a lot of people east of California are like, oh no, they're way too liberal. So you couldn't use that for the model. But New York could embrace a better system than they got, and it might be looked at as a national model. But you don't want that. So anyway, let's get back to this. Recreational marijuana, he said, it should be separated from the workplace. And he says that he don't support recreational marijuana, but apparently Jimmy does, which explains some of the stories you've been writing. What does that mean? Are the stories like, are they factually wrong? Is there like some mistakes in them? I mean, what is this pot shaming all about anyway? I don't like it. I'm sure there's a lot of writers that smoke marijuana. Most of the writers I read smoke marijuana. I'm pretty sure they do. The ones that don't smoke marijuana, I don't like to read their stuff. It's usually boring and it's very opinionated and not my opinion for the most part. So anyway, he goes on and he says that the flip side argument, as you know, is it's a gateway drug. So earlier he was saying that Jimmy had a loaded question because it was interjected with a little bit of opinion. Now he's going to say the flip side argument, as you know, as if it's some kind of a fact that marijuana is a gateway drug. Marijuana leads to other drugs, and there's a lot of proof that that's true. Actually, there's no proof that that's true. There's zero proof that that's true. Not a single smidgen of proof that I've ever seen in my life proved that marijuana is a gateway to harder drugs, period. My argument is that if you found marijuana and, maybe that might be the only thing you ever wanted. Might not be, you might not even like it though. It might not be for you. Other drugs might be for other people. I've noticed that people that like opioids and opiates they're not really into marijuana. But that's, we're getting on a side topic here. This guy just straight up handed the gateway theory right back to the reporter as if it was fact and said, this is, as you know, it's a gateway drug. And then again, before he gets done, he has to do it one more time. I am unconvinced on recreational marijuana. We know you are. You're a dick on medical marijuana. So how are you gonna? You even one more quote that I remember he said just a couple weeks ago or earlier this year. He was talking about the decriminalization bill that was on the floor maybe of New York that just started out the new session with, and he said, yeah, people are going to smoke marijuana. There's nothing we can do about that. But as far as selling it goes, no one's going to be doing any of that. We're going to crack down on the people selling it. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's saying, hey, black market, we're going to be okay with the Mexican cartel style black market still. That's fine with us. Or since all these states around you have marijuana coming in legally, maybe they're going to be smuggling in from there. Who knows? I mean, you're opening the black market up in a big way by saying the shit you've said. And now you're talking about this gateway theory, man. Cuomo, I am very disappointed to see this. And furthermore, this one right here. If you choose to marijuana recreationally, you know the law. But again, as reporters, now, if you choose to marijuana recreationally, what does that even mean? I'm going to marijuana for a little while, guys. I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to go marijuana recreationally. But anyway, if you choose it recreationally, you know the law. But again, as reporters, I think you should keep it out of the workplace. But it does explain a lot to me, Jimmy. I want you to know that. Like he's prodding his finger into Jimmy's chest, saying that he knows he's stoned, and he knows, and that explains why his writing is subpar, maybe. I don't know. It sounds like he's just being a dick. But I don't like it, man. I don't like it at all. So for the record, Cuomo supports medical marijuana in the same way as someone tweeting hashtags supports social justice movements, or the same way CNN cares about like facts, or do you know what I'm saying? Like Cuomo, he don't care about medical marijuana. He don't care about sick patients. He don't care about access. So New York has some of the strictest medical marijuana regulations in the United States. No smoke marijuana is allowed. Dispensaries are few and far between. And the list of doctors who can recommend the drug to a patient, most of whom must be near death, is a literal state secret. Like you can't even. They were talking about improving their medical marijuana laws at the end of last session in their state Congress or whatever. They couldn't come up with anything that really made sense. I mean, they were talking about allowing it in schools administered by nurses. That was the only thing that everybody agreed on. Other than that, I couldn't tell you what you could do, what you had to have, how you would go about getting a medical marijuana card or whatever, and how to get a hold of I've seen stores on the internet of places where you would go to get medical marijuana in New York, and it looks weird. It looks like you're walking into some weird office place with there's no weed anywhere. There's like ladies sitting there wearing $7,000 worth of clothes to, show you different things that are not smokable. I believe it's salves and sprays and tinctures and all this other stuff. Really low THC, if any at all. Worst medical marijuana program in the country. Now, I know if you watch a lot of my videos, you probably will say, oh, you say that about everybody's medical marijuana program. And I don't know. There's good things about some of them, and there's bad things about all of them. Some are better than others. Nothing's perfect out there. If you're looking for the perfect medical marijuana laws, you need to look no further than Michigan, kind of. It's the wild, wild west until the new ones kick in, which they already are. That's not really the best thing in the world. It's like a commercial industry that's taxed for medical marijuana. But at least they still allow smoking. They still allow caregivers and patient relationships. There's a lot of reasons why Michigan's got a really good program, and even the one coming in is going to be okay. Colorado's got a really good medical marijuana program. Now, people are worried about it being threatened by, the recreational, or people are going to get med cards so they don't have to pay recreational prices and all this stuff, and it's going to water down. Man, none of those arguments make sense. Anybody that uses marijuana, whether they believe it or not, is using it medicinally, and so there you go. Who cares if you got a card or not in Colorado? You got Washington State, who had a good medical marijuana program, but recreational fucked it all up because they got the alcohol controllers trying to, control the recreational, and to them, medical marijuana is just competition, et cetera, et cetera. California's got the longest medical marijuana program in existence, and I've never heard of any problems with it. Never heard of a problem in California. People always giving me good reports, talking about, oh, it's easy to get a card, and basically that's it. You want to take it as serious as you can. You can get you can get any medical marijuana program that you've ever heard of in California. So how could it be bad? And access is basically like, as long as you're towning a dick, that you can get medical marijuana on any corner. And that's about that. So yeah, Cuomo, prohibitionist, point blank. He's a Democrat, and he's got a lot of good ideas, and he's doing a lot of good things. But when it comes to marijuana, he sucks. He's bad. And anyway, so let's go on. And now here he is with the gateway. As Politico pointed out, no less an authority than the federal government's National Institute on Drug Abuse, not exactly known as Pro-Pot, says the gateway theory is just that, a theory, unproven. NIDA notes the majority of marijuana users never move on to harder drugs, including, guess what, Governor Cuomo, who admitted to smoking weed when he was younger. Is he a heroin addict now? Or does he use harder drugs? I don't see it. And I think he uses no drugs now, so whatever. He promotes alcohol quite a bit, but as far as drugs go, he don't do drugs, I guess. Maybe that was his gateway to alcohol. Who knows? But if marijuana does act as a, quote, gateway drug, so does alcohol and nicotine. Rewind it all the way back to breast milk. I mean, everything's a gateway, right? Like, if there wasn't something else after something that you just did, but marijuana doesn't necessarily lead you to harder drugs. You know what does do that? Prescription opioids and opiates. That's what does that. As soon as you get done with those, you'll move right on to heroin. And that's a fact. That's a provable fact. I can show you numbers that would scare you of that fact. So other research in other countries, including the 2003 review in New Zealand, were simply inconclusive. So what they're saying there is time and time again, and I've seen this research go back to the 60s in Israel, there is no gateway. They've tried to do this gateway thing in studies and tried to, they set the studies up and stack it and try to make it work in their favor. No gateway, dude. There is no gateway. Matter of fact, if you've ever seen the beginning of Pineapple Express, I think, item 9 or whatever, yeah. It's the bee's knees, dude. You don't need anything else. And Cuomo, in my opinion, he's just another prohibitionist. He's just another run-of-the-mill, dime a dozen prohibitionist that has some kind of reason in his back pocket tugging at his heartstrings as to why he has to continue to use ancient propaganda that we call reefer madness to oppose something that in New York, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it, about 70% of New Yorkers probably want marijuana to be legal for adults. That's just a wild guess, man. New York's probably one of those places where the number is way higher than the national average, just because it is, man. That's all I got to say about that. Cuomo, please, if you have some ambitions for the future in politics, especially in the Democratic Party, because the young kids are about to take over that thing, right? And anybody that ain't for legalizing marijuana, that's going to be one of their very first purity tests. They're gonna purity test you right out of the damn Democratic Party. So you might as well start running as a Republican with this reefer madness shit.